Lo-fi sketches and storyboard. This is where it starts to get fun. And as a reminder, here's our picture again, and now we're in that second yellow step. We were just up here about how you work with a customer to formulate stories. Now that you have a description on an index card or something kind of at that level, what do you do next? The next thing you do is you start thinking about the user experience of whoever the stakeholder is that you're developing that story with. What is the experience that they're going to have when they use the feature? So sometimes I call this the code you wish you had. And in particular, you want to avoid the situation of this unpronounceable acronym, which is short for what I said but not what I want. So words only get you so far, but if your app is human-facing, what they're going to be interacting with is probably more than just an index card. So again, we're going to steal great ideas from the HCI community and build a lo-fi prototype. Lo-fi means really low, like whiteboard or pencil and paper. You'll notice that that is about the lowest possible fi you can imagine. We don't know what, you can imagine making a web page that kind of looks like that, but there's nothing here about styling or fonts or colors or any gingerbread. Whoops, sorry about that. Does anybody know that there's kind of a standard UI reason why you do it this way, by the way? There are a number of reasons to do it this way, but does anyone want to suggest why this is actually more effective when you're working with a customer than trying to do like a nice, you drew it in Adobe Illustrator kind of a thing? Or whatever people use these days? Yeah? It's certainly faster to iterate on, so that's one thing. What else? Yeah?
Lowers their expectations.
It lowers their expectations. And yes, I did get that on camera. But it lowers their expectations, but it lowers them in the right way, right? Because what it says is, we're focused on the qualitative aspects of what this is going to look like. We're not focused on, I really prefer if you use, Comic Sans instead of Times. Things like that, where at this level, you're trying to figure out how to build something that behaves the way they want, right? Hence the B in BDD. So if a lo-fi UI sketch is sort of a very kind of coarse representation of a page, let's say, then the next step up from that is a sequence of pages, because most things the customer will do with your app, if they're interacting through a browser, will be multiple steps. So if you think about, if you know about how movies are done, a storyboard is one of the early phases where sort of key scenes in the movie are sketched out, and you kind of look at the static scenes to see the progression of the action. So storyboards in user-facing apps are very similar, except the scenes might not always be in a linear sequence. For example, you might say that the example storyboard for adding a new movie is if you start from the page where, where all the movies are listed, and there's some sort of a link or button that says Add New Movie, then if the user clicks that, the green arrow says, so now you're going to be taken to this other page, which is the one that looks kind of like where you fill in some stuff. There's a Save button, and if you press the Save button, you'll see maybe some sort of a confirmation screen that echoes back what you just entered. And finally, that confirmation page has another link, like go back to the main list, and there you are. So very simple, right? It's a series of essentially little panels. And you can make this elaborate too, but you can do things like if there's places where a pop-up would appear, you can have like a little piece of paper cut out and say, when you do that, you'll see this pop-up. But again, it's very simple technology that it's more than enough for you and the customer to come to some agreement on what is desired. And it's pretty clear, like unlike a nice mock-up that you would draw with a professional tool or even display in a browser, we had this problem in the class a couple of years ago where the students thought, if the app is going to be using HTML pages anyway, we'll just do the mock-up in HTML. I mean, it's not that hard. Once you get used to using Bootstrap in HTML, you could actually do that in a few minutes. And the problem is the customer was interacting with a mock-up and clicking the button. They're like, nothing's happening, right? And it's because we hadn't lowered their expectations. They saw it in the browser. They saw buttons and things that they could interact with, and they assumed that what they were seeing was a prototype. Clearly, if you're seeing this, there's no code, right? So there's no expectation that it will work if you try to interact with it. Again, used in real life, this is a whiteboard photo from the same company that I showed you their Kanban board before. And you can see that they've got little sort of sketched out, I'm sorry the photo turned out blurry, it was a bad phone. But they've basically got exactly these kind of little sketches that are very schematically oriented. It's just enough for the devs and the customer to kind of come to agreement on roughly what the thing is going to look like. Okay, so again, it's sort of a discount method of coming to agreement with the customer. You can then convert those things to HTML. Well, I don't know. But if you start by the sketches and storyboards instead of doing HTML, you'll get all these benefits. Like it's less intimidating because it's clearly just a rough sketch. The customer might feel bad asking you to change it if it looks like a lot of work went into it. But if it's just a pencil drawing, they're not going to feel bad saying, oh, could you, move that field up to the top or something like that. Again, if the stakeholders are non-technical, there's no way they're going to confuse this for a working prototype. They're more likely to suggest changes if they don't feel like, oh, wow, you've already invested time to build all this stuff. I'm not going to, it's fine the way it is. Don't worry about it. And they're more likely to focus on the interaction, right? The experience of using the feature instead of details like visual appearance, which really can be filled in later. And as we all know, using a tool like Bootstrap for those of us who are graphically impaired gets you, it'll give you a good enough prototype that it'll kind of look like the thing that you mocked up with them. So this is a great approach. It's easy to do, totally fun. And don't take my word for it. Remember I said these top 10 slides are feedback from the previous generation of 169 students who just took this class with me last year. And this is, the green comments are people who did something that we suggested and found that it worked. The red comments, which is the bottom two on this slide, are comments from people who wish they had done something differently. And notice, people who actually spent time doing the prototypes, in some cases, it turns out the customer didn't like it, and they had blown a lot of effort that really went nowhere. And this bottom one, which is why we're focusing on getting people to understand smart user stories, never realize how challenging it is to get from customer description to technical plan. If there's one sentence that sums up what most people say they learn in this class, it's that last one. Okay? But again, these are the actual unedited words from your fellow students who took this class a year ago now. So take them for what it's worth.